Hello, bookies and other random YouTubulars. Today's book is Nightcrawling by Leila Mottley. This is an Oprah book. Yep, shiny. Oprah book, and it's also from the New York Public Library, where I get a lot of my books because I'm not going to spend a lot of money and put the books on my shelf and then have to get rid of them like I did a few years back. So I just try to use the library if I can, but I do buy some books, mostly on my Kindle. That way I can, or my Apple books, my iPad, so I can read them there and keep them in this little place where I don't have to store them in my tiny room here in New York City. This is a really, this is a winner, a good book, and a triumph for a 21-year-old author. She says in her book notes that she came upon this story in Oakland, where she lives. It's all set in Oakland. And she read about the story about some police officers getting caught up in a sexual corruption deal. And in 2015, when she was quite young, how old was she in 2015? Well, she was like 14 years old. So since then, she's studied the whole thing and went to Smith College and dropped out and worked on this book. And I'd say it's very good, and I recommend it. It's what it is. It's kind of a social crime fiction book. It definitely has crime elements in it, and it's definitely involved with the social milieu of our days, including Black Lives Matter, which many of us took to the streets and marched about a couple of years ago, and as well as myself, and I was very happy and proud to do so. It's about a woman in poverty forced into a life of prostitution for a spell anyway. There are a lot of things in this book that are kind of melodramatic. I think that indicates something about a first writer in that her first novel, in that she's throwing the book at us, so to speak, throwing a lot of things in, trying to get a lot of stuff in, maybe a little bit too much, because there's so much conflict and difficulties going on with her parents, the main character's Kyra's parents, her brother, her building that she lives in, possibility of being evicted, what happened to her mother, what happened to her sister, younger sister, her uncle, who ended up become this pop star. The pop star part. There are parts of this that when I talked about Nelson Algren's book, I talked about how even back in the 30s and 40s, a lot of us were trying to look for something that's a big win to get out, to win, to become a star, basically. And all that is just, grown and grown to today, where we think we're going to become Instagram stars or YouTube vlog stars or whatever. There's a lot of hope for this big win somehow that's going to elevate us from our working class positions or our non-working class positions, our positions of having a college degree and master's and postgraduate, whatever, and still not being able to get a job other than adjunct or whatever. But this is about people who are in Oakland and dirt poor and don't have these educational advantages. I already mentioned the Baroque manner of so many things going on in the book, even though it's only 271 pages. It's a very fast read and very gripping, very suspenseful, and I really loved the book. And I think that one thing that did strike me about it is that it is in first person. So we read Kyra and the dialogue between Kyra, her and all her brother and her friends and all this, and those people are speaking in more of a less than standard English way that you might find in well, people in general, you know, double negatives, just not really proper English, but yet the narrator is very proper in her English for almost throughout, except for a couple points where she uses the improper words. And well, I'm glad that she did it that way, because it makes it easier to read and much clearer what's going on than trying to deal with so much of this stuff that, like in the dialogue of you know, she didn't write it in the characters. The character's tone, the character's thoughts, all that, but not really the character's language. The language is very clean, pure, standard, whereas the way she talks, she might use a double negative, things like that. So that's a minor criticism, as well as sometimes a character would be mentioned, like Clara. It's like, okay, well, wait a minute, who was Clara? You know, it's something about Clara, and then, you know, I have to, oh yeah, okay, I make the connections. Maybe, you know, a lot of these things are something maybe an editor should be dealing with and working on with the writer. I don't know, but be that as it may, I still say it's a very powerful and very good, and kind of, you know, I'm glad that it's an Oprah book. I read another Oprah book many years ago, which was Million Little Pieces by James Fry. I don't know if anybody remembers that one. You might have to be a little bit older to remember all the brouhaha that went on about that. There's you know, he has this memoir about an addict and recovery and all these things, and right on the outset he gets all his teeth pulled without any sort of medication, because he can't take any more medication anymore because he's a heroin addict or whatever. So it became exposed that it was all kind of bullshit, that a lot of it is really kind of a fictionalized thing, and whatever became of James Fry. Anyway, enough of James Fry. We're talking about the great Leila Mottley and her book, Nightcrawling. So she's forced into this situation where she's stuck in the apartment by herself. The rent has gone up. She's going to be evicted. Her brother, who said he was going to protect her once her dad and her mother are out of the picture, he decides he's going to be a pop star, like the uncle. The uncle is a rap star, cousin Jay or whatever his name is. So the uncle, and so he wants to be you know, rap star like his uncle. So he just goes into the studio, hangs out with his friends. He doesn't have a job. It's up to Kyra to get the job, get the money, and keep it all together, which she struggles to do. She keeps trying to get a job. She's a little young. They ask for a resume. She's like, what resume? I don't know. I don't even have a resume. So she doesn't have a resume. And, you know, she's basically left out in this system where there's not that really many jobs anyway, and the ones that you're not going to be able to pay for an apartment on your own with this money, particularly if the rent goes up, which is constantly going up all the time. So she goes out to the streets, and out there she ends up getting before how she gets to the streets and who she meets in the streets is also interesting. She goes to a strip club where a friend of hers is working, and that friend gets her drunk, and then she goes out, walks out afterwards, and gets followed out by some guy, the polka dot tie man, I think it was what she called him, and she's raped. Well, soon after that, she runs into a prostitute called Camilla. Now, Camilla is an interesting character. She's an older streetwalker and is turned into this recruiter for streetwalkers for this pimp, Desmond, who has a gaggle of girls. And so throughout the novel, we hear about Camilla, and she pops up a couple of times. Kyra finally goes to that pimp's house, and a big party is going on there, and a pivotal scene of the book is about to unfold there. I'm not going to tell you about that, but I'm just telling you about kind of the setup things here. This is not a spoiler review. So Camilla, it turns out much later in the book that Camilla tells about her story, and it turns out that Camilla is a trans woman. So it turns out that a trans woman is the person who is recruiting these other girl prostitutes to keep her afloat, keep her in good stead with this Desmond guy. And so I thought that was an interesting wrinkle, how you can make of it what you may, but how Camilla was actually a trans prostitute. So she gets busted by these cops, and the cops end up using her. And that's really the main plot of the story, or one of the main plots of the story, how the cops are abusing illegally, using this girl and many others in this, for their sex parties, whatever, paying them sometimes and sometimes not. So Kyra unfortunately gets wrapped up in this stuff. Later in the novel, there's all this exposure of it all, and I like the way it ended up. It didn't go for the happy. It went for a realistic ending that I felt was really true to life, and that's why I say that it's really a fine novel, and I would recommend it. Especially anyone who is interested in poverty, policing, Oakland, California, prostitution, the issues of prostitution. I guess I'm kind of a Nordic model myself that would support that kind of a system. You can look it up if you want. And it's, very tragic and sad. And there's also a kid, abandoned kid in one of the other apartments. Now, this is an interesting part of the thing too, because the boy, Trevor, has been left by his mother. He's like 8, 9 years old. During the course of the novel, it goes on for some months with the story, and Trevor has been left in his apartment in the same complex by his mother, who is a some sort of crack addict or some kind of a doper. So she's off doing her thing for long periods, not paying the rent, and basically Kyra kind of adopts him. They end up living together in her apartment after her brother is gone, and I thought this was much more. There were scenes of her and the kid, which are reminiscent of Charlie Chaplin's great and kind of first very serious movie, The Kid, 21. I recommend watching that. And there's a scene where Trevor is being pulled away, they're being separated, and it evoked very much The Kid. Another thing about this is this book is really the Oakland Scream. There's another scene on a highway that got me to thinking right like that of Edvard Munch's great, very famous painting of The Scream. So it's really a scream of pain of somebody caught in a web that they cannot control, looking for justice that they might find, and looking for hope and love and connection with a very maternal sense. She's very maternal. She's worried about her brother, wanting to take care of her brother, wanting to take care of Trevor. She has a real intense connection to Trevor, the 9-year-old. She's not so much into her mother because her mother, well, there's quite a story about her mother, and it's her mother's kind of off the wall and imprisoned in the book. So I would say you do well if you like crime fiction, if you like a fast, gripping, exciting, and very interesting novel. You basically cannot go wrong with The Nightcrawler by Leila Mottley. Thank you for watching. Like and subscribe.